can I just say one thing firstly? I love the name Eat Sleep Boxing Repeat.
Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. It's me, Niall. Delighted as always to be joined by Owen, and we're here in final prediction mode for this weekend's European super middleweight title fight between England's Callum Simpson and Italy's unbeaten Ivan Zucco at Oakwell Stadium, of course, the home of Simpson's beloved Barnsley FC. The EBU belt on the line at 168 pounds. Owen, I hope you're well as always. Let's jump straight into it. No messing about. What is your final prediction for Callum Simpson against Ivan Zucco on Saturday night?
Thank you for having me on as always. I think it's really a difficult fight to call. Zucco's 21-0, 18 knockouts. So, he clearly packs a punch. He's clearly been blasting people out. I think I've learned a lot of the times with these unknown fighters, I tend to sway with points to decision victories, and they tend to be incorrect. So I'm going to back Callum Simpson to get the stoppage done. I think Callum Simpson is a big puncher himself. I just think, like we say, it's the fact we don't know what this Zucco's about. He's going to come in to knock Callum Simpson out, judging by his record. And I'm backing Callum Simpson to get it done in the sort of mid to late rounds.
Yeah, I have to agree, to be honest with you, in terms of my kind of final prediction, would be a Callum Simpson win. I was also kind of tilting between a stoppage or points win. I'm going to go for a late stoppage myself for Callum Simpson. And, you made a good point. You look at Ivan Zucco's record, it's an impressive record, unbeaten, clearly a big puncher. But then if you kind of do a bit of more of a deep dive into his record, there's not the strongest names on there, should we say. It's not the most stacked kind of resume you'll ever see. But, obviously a decent fighter. From clips I've seen of him, he is aggressive. As you say, he will come to knock Callum Simpson out. He probably has to in Barnsley, with that kind of partisan home crowd. He does have weaknesses from what I've seen. He's not the fastest of hand. Doesn't really move his head that much. And yeah, I just think Callum Simpson has a high ceiling. I think he has a higher ceiling than Ivan Zucco, and I think he's too much of a volume puncher, too quick of hand, and he is heavy-handed himself. So yeah, maybe Zucco gives him problems early on with that power, the aggression, but I think Simpson is just levels above him, in my opinion, from what I've seen anyway. But yeah, I think Simpson gets it done by stoppage, I have to say. So I agree with you on that. I'll go rounds 10 to 12, maybe I'll say, in that kind of range for the new European champion, Callum Simpson. We shall see. So that's our final prediction. Just a quick one on Callum Simpson before we kind of round up here. What do you think is his kind of ceiling? The logical next step, he's won British, he's won Commonwealth, European if he wins on Saturday night. The next step would be these kind of top 15, fringe world level guys. Would you agree? And kind of, do you think he belongs at that level?
It's a difficult one because, he is gradually stepping up in opponents. Do I think he's a world beater? Absolutely not. But I think what you said is spot on. He's done it the traditional way, British, Commonwealth, European. He deserves a chance. He clearly packs a punch. Could he find that knockout at world level? Who knows? But I think it's the only next logical step. Whether he's good enough or not is another question. But if he comfortably disposes of Zucco, who is an unknown, unbeaten Italian fighter, packs a massive punch, sort of a well over 80% knockout record, then unfortunately, if Callum Simpson isn't good enough, we're going to find out the hard way. But I think he has to step up. A top 15 next, definitely. Probably looking at between 10 and 15. I wouldn't go top 10. If he gets through a top 10 to 15, then we know where his potential ceiling is and where he's at. But I think you're spot on. It's the next logical step, and it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, definitely will. Absolutely is the next logical step. As you said yourself, is he a world beater or a future world champion? I don't know. We're a bit away from that yet. but he is clearly a talented fighter. And I think, the division, it kind of it dries out a bit after the top guys. There is quality fighters there. Of course, you've got the one and only Canelo. You've got Edgar Berlanga, names like that, Diego Pacheco, Christian and Billy, real top names. Is he ready for them names yet? I don't know. But as you say, that kind of 10 to 15 range, yeah, that 10 to 15 range, I think there is fighters there that, there's no reason he couldn't beat them. You know what I mean? There's also a domestic rival that we haven't mentioned yet, Mark Jeffers, who's also on the card, I believe, this weekend against Sean Hemphill. So maybe that's what they're setting up for. But yeah, I do think it has to be that kind of lower reaches of the top 15 next if he wins. And who's to say he wouldn't win that? But if I had to push you for maybe a couple of names, I mentioned Jeffers there. That'd be a big domestic fight, especially with a European title on the line. If you had to kind of give me a name or two that you would like to see him in with next, who would you kind of match make him against?
Definitely not Pacheco. Absolutely not. Problem is, I think Mark Jeffers is a good domestic fight, but I don't really know what it does to push Callum Simpson on. If Boxer are going to push him as not necessarily a stable star, but a big name within their stable, is Mark Jeffers a big enough name to push him on? It's a good domestic fight. They could probably try and get Oakwell again at some point or some stage. So it makes sense. I just think if we're trying to push Callum Simpson on, then Mark Jeffers is not the name that he needs. And Billy, again, probably a step too early. But I'd definitely say him over Pacheco. I wouldn't put him anywhere near Pacheco yet. So, do you know what? Maybe Mark Jeffers is the sensible option. I wouldn't personally want to see that, but thinking about it, if he gets rid of Mark Jeffers, then the domestic scene is left that scene at European level as well. So on he goes. So selfishly, I wouldn't want to see that fight, but logically, it probably would make sense.
Yeah, it is a good point that you make in terms of kind of name value to push him on to the next level. Maybe it's not the one, but yeah, I think that's maybe what they're kind of angling for next. But yeah, maybe the likes of a Billy Pacheco too far. There's Bruno Soras, which I was kind of thinking of earlier. A name after fighting Munguia. Not a big puncher, winnable fight for Callum Simpson will come to win. Kevin Sajo as well is another name around that kind of range, which would be a decent fight. But yeah, there is interesting options. So if Callum Simpson does win this weekend, there is fascinating options for him there at 168. So yeah, that's all we have time for on this one. Myself and Owen giving our final predictions for this weekend's European title fight at super middleweight between Callum Simpson of England and the unbeaten Italian Ivan Zucco at the Oakwell Football Stadium in Barnsley. So yeah, let us know what you think in the comments. Do you agree with our final predictions? Or are you going for the Italian to upset the odds and maintain his own unbeaten record? Let us know what you think. Get involved down below. And as always, please drop a like on the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel at ESBR Boxing, and follow us on all social media. On until next time, take care.
Cheers, mate.